Warning: some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Sandra Renee Cantu was born on March 8, 2001 to a happy family in Tracy, California. Sandra was a very energetic and talkative girl and would start a conversation with pretty much anyone she came across. She lived with her mom Maria, her grandparents, and her 3 older siblings in a trailer park. On Friday, March 27, 2009, Sandra went to a friend's house after school and then came home to check in with her mother. It was around 4 p.m. when she got home. Shortly after arriving home, Sandra asked her mom if she could go to another friend's house to play, and her mother told her yes, it was okay. After some time, her mother started to get concerned when her daughter hadn't returned. Sandra wouldn't stay out longer than an hour or two, so at around 7 o'clock, when her daughter never arrived, she decided to call Sandra's friends. Maria asked if Sandra was there, but everyone said they hadn't seen her since school. She then decided to go look around the trailer park to see if Sandra was still out playing, but after walking around, she didn't find her daughter. At 7:53 p.m., Maria called the police to report her daughter missing. Once the police arrived, they proceeded to talk to everyone in the trailer park, but no one knew where Sandra was. They proceeded to search the area and didn't find anything. Officers started to fear the worst since it was getting late and nobody had seen Sandra. Police found cameras close to Sandra's home. When looking over the security camera's footage, they could clearly see Sandra walking home and then changing direction suddenly. 8 minutes later, a neighbor's SUV passes by. Officers couldn't make out who was driving, but that was their suspect. Was the suspect male or female? Officers couldn't tell due to the footage being pixelated. Throughout the weekend of March 28th and 29th, the police did everything in their power to look for Sandra. As the police ran out of options, they went to the media. The security camera footage was shown on TV, and a $22,000 reward was offered for any information leading to Sandra. The officer's first suspect was an older man in his late 60s. He was seen kissing Sandra on the lips 2 years before at a local swimming pool. This creep was reported by Sandra's aunt, and he did confess that he had kissed her but said it was harmless. The police went on to explain to him that this was very much not harmless and that it was a criminal offense. The man said that he always had an attraction toward those under 18. Although this was a big red flag, the police saw no connection between the man and the actual case since he wasn't around when Sandra went missing. They decided to let him go but decided to keep an eye on him just in case. Officers then found out about Sandra's dad, Daniel. Daniel and Maria were going through a difficult divorce during this time. Daniel wasn't paying his child support, so they had issues and would constantly fight. Officers thought maybe Daniel had kidnapped Sandra to get back at Maria. Officers were able to have a conversation with Daniel. After their conversation, they ruled him out as a suspect. They were able to verify his alibi and gave him the green light. On April 6, the suitcase was found by farm workers during a routine draining of an irrigation pond. Inside the suitcase was the body of a young girl. She was taken to the county morgue and identified that evening as Sandra Cantu.
Tonight, the police chief tells us that the person or the persons responsible for the death of 8-year-old Sandra Cantu will be brought to justice. Now, Sandra Cantu's body was found inside a black suitcase that was located at the irrigation pond by farm workers this morning off of Machete Road. Now, police then took that luggage from the pond and transported the bag to the county morgue, where this evening police identified the body of Sandra Cantu. Now, right now, police cannot tell us the exact cause of death, but investigators tell us Sandra was identified by the clothing she was wearing. Now, investigators say the area where Sandra's body was found, search crews did in fact comb through that area. Now, we're told the irrigation pond was filled 2 weeks ago, and authorities believe the luggage floated to the surface. Sandra's body was only 2 miles away from her home.
Melissa became the main suspect since, on the day of the kidnapping, Melissa messaged Sandra's mother to tell her that she had something stolen. What she said was stolen was her Eddie Bauer suitcase, the same suitcase Sandra's body would be found in. Melissa lived in the same trailer park as Sandra and was friends with her mother. Melissa worked at their local church, and Sandra would visit that church during weekends to play with Melissa's daughter. When officers investigated her background, it was noted that she had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, also bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia. During one of her episodes of psychosis, Melissa would become unaware of what she was doing. Most of the time, she would inflict pain on herself. She had been taking medication to suppress her nasty outbursts, but officers didn't know what happened or why things took a dark, twisted turn. Officers also noted that during the vigil for Sandra, Melissa approached them crying and hyperventilating, saying she had found a note on her door which read a misspelled message about Sandra. The message wrote out, "Locked in a stolen suitcase thrown in water on Bockaty Road and Whitehill Road, witness." Officers quickly gathered a search warrant, and when they entered Melissa's house, first thing they found were notes matching the letters from the note Melissa had handed the police a few days back. Although she had tried disguising her handwriting, she didn't do a very good job. Officers also received a tip from a husband and his wife. They told officers that they had spotted Melissa and her SUV at the irrigation pond where Sandra's body was discovered. He told officers at the time that she told them that she had to pee quickly. They didn't find it strange till they saw the news and Sandra's body was recovered from that exact spot. After searching through Melissa's house, they found all the evidence they needed, but they didn't find her. Melissa was in the hospital after she had attempted to take her own life. Yes, she knew the truth was about to come out. When the detective finally got to interview her, she gave them a false story. She told officers that Sandra and her daughter were playing hide and seek and there was an accident. Officers asked her if it was an accident, then why not call for help, and Melissa never replied. The detectives were able to find out that on that fateful afternoon, Sandra had actually gone to her friend's house only to find out her friend wasn't home. As she was returning home, Melissa invited her into her car and convinced her to come to church with her, the church where Sandra would see Melissa every weekend. Once they arrived at the church, Melissa offered Sandra a snack and a drink, and she accepted. Melissa then poisoned the girl with alprazolam, which was hidden in a drink she gave her. Once she was knocked out, she assaulted her with a rolling pin and strangled her. Within half an hour, Melissa stuffed Sandra's body in the suitcase, which she had already reported stolen, drove to the irrigation pond, and tossed the suitcase. On April 9th, FBI agents searched the church, and in the kitchen, they found a rolling pin with a bloody smudge on it. It tested positive for Sandra's DNA, and at Melissa's home and in her purse, there were many bottles of alprazolam. Even worse, it seemed like the murder was premeditated. The police looked at Melissa's internet search history and found an article about a man who had hidden his granddaughter's body in a suitcase. Melissa was charged with the murder of Sandra Cantu. When being questioned, she said that Sandra and her daughter were playing a game of hide and seek when Sandra hid in the suitcase. She supposedly forgot that there was a child in the suitcase, and she locked it. Sandra suffocated when Melissa discovered her. It was too late, so she panicked and decided to dump her in the irrigation pond. However, the body was stuffed in the suitcase made it clear to the police that there was no way Sandra could have crawled in there willingly. Melissa's story would change a few more times before the trial. April 14th, Melissa had the first court appearance, and she appeared with marks on her forehead which she had inflicted on herself that morning. She cried throughout her whole appearance. On June 12th, Melissa held her plea, during which she tearfully apologized to Sandra's family. Detectives also found evidence of Melissa drugging 2 other people with anti-anxiety drugs. Laura Polk, a mother who lived in the same trailer park, described an incident that she had reported to the police in January of that year. Her daughter returned home one day in a very weird state. The girl's 18-year-old sister described this to ABC News. Her speech was slurred like she had a bad lisp, and she would cry a lot like something was wrong with her. The mother and older daughter took the little girl to the hospital. The doctors tested the girl's blood and saw that she had strong muscle relaxants in her system. There was another case involving Melissa, which the police didn't look hard enough into. On March 3rd, the same year, Melissa gave an unspecified type of medicine to a Hayward man named Daniel Plowman. The same day, the man was arrested for driving under the influence. However, he was never charged. He had been drugged without his knowledge, the same way Melissa drugged her 2 other victims by hiding alprazolam in food or drinks, and the accusations were not over yet. Melissa was a person of interest regarding 2 arson fires that were set 8 days apart in La Palma, where she lived in 2007. When it was all said and done, Melissa was charged with Sandra's murder and given life in prison. Sandra's family hopes she suffers every day in prison.